Today I'm making fried cabbage and we're going to discuss all the tips you can follow to make the most flavorful and delicious fried cabbage. So let's get to cooking. Starting off with some beautiful green cabbage. Also, I'm going to add some onion, some carrots, and garlic for additional flavor. And I have my cured pork fatback. This is salted pork that you can buy sliced or in a slab as I have. I have some white vinegar that I'm going to add to a bowl with some cold water. My preferred method for cleaning my raw vegetables is to use vinegar and cool water. My cabbage is still whole, so I'm just swirling it around to try to get the water solution mixed in throughout the outer leaves to get it all clean. If you want to pull off the outer leaves and stick them in the water separately, you certainly can. I have two medium large heads of cabbage and then this one smaller one that I've had for a couple of days. So you can see some of the leaves are turning yellow. We're just going to take those off before we actually cook this cabbage. After you soak your cabbage for a few minutes in vinegar water, you want to rinse it off with just cool water in a colander. Now I have my cabbage and I'm pulling off the leaves and I'm going to make sure I dry them off carefully. And for each leaf, I'm pulling off the thick stem in the bottom center. You also could take several leaves and stack them up and then use a knife to cut like a V shape around that thick stalk and pull it out that way to do more than one leaf at a time. Be sure to place a dry dish rag or kitchen towel under your plastic cutting board to stabilize it and keep it from moving when you start cutting with your knife, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Now that I have the stalk pulled out of my cabbage, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. And I like to cut it into stacks and make it easier for myself to process a large amount of cabbage. Since I have three heads, I'm just stacking it up. And you do want to be sure that your leaves are dry because whenever you're working with a knife or sharp utensil, you don't want your hand to be wet and make it easier for that utensil to slip in your hand and cut yourself. You can cut your cabbage leaves in whatever size you want. I like medium sized strips. You can do a very fine julienne, which I do sometimes. You could do big squares or rectangles. It's really up to your personal preference. You'll notice how I'm cutting four sides around the core of the cabbage to get it all off of the core, and then I dispose of that center core piece. And then just take your time and cut the cabbage to the size that you prefer. And then I have all of my cabbage in a big clear bowl. And I'm going to set that to the side and prepare my other aromatic vegetables. So I have garlic. When I buy a head of garlic, I make sure that I see roots on the bottom. I read something about it being overly processed certain places and you won't see the roots on the bottom if that's the case. You can use the number of cloves of garlic that you want. I'm going to add several because I have three heads of cabbage and I do cut off that little root piece off of each clove just because I don't want someone to chew on that piece. Now I have my onion and I'm going to cut off the bottom of that and then slice it in half. You can use as much or as little as you like. I'm using one medium-sized onion, but if you don't like onion, you can absolutely leave it out. You'll notice I have fresh garlic and fresh onion here. I am also going to use garlic powder and onion powder because I like the balance of using it fresh and dried. Now I have my carrot. I'm just cutting both ends off, and I'm using my Titan peelers for this. The first peeler is to peel the outer skin off of the carrot. You want to keep the carrot resting on the board as you peel it and don't peel it while it's being held in your hand so you don't cut yourself. Very quick and easy with this Titan peeler. The second peeler that I have is actually the julienne peeler that comes in the set of two with this Titan peelers. I'll have a link to it in the description. Look at how easily this juliennes the carrot. You can also buy matchstick carrots already cut up like this, but with my one carrot, it was easy enough for me to do it myself, and that's the remnants of what was left over. Now I have my fat back. You can buy it sliced up like this, or you can buy it in a whole slab and cut it yourself. Either method, you're going to find that this salted pork is salty. You can even see it on it. It's the way that people cured meat back in the day, and they still sell it this way. I'm rinsing off the excess salt just so my dish isn't too salty. I have seen some people actually boil this before they fry it. I don't go that far. I just rinse off the salt and then set it to the side, and you can see the same salt on the sliced pieces as well. This is actually fat from the back of a pig. It does have a flavor that I like. It's not something that I eat every day or even every month, but it has a nice flavor and I wanted to use it in my cabbage today. I have a heavy bottom pan on my stove waiting for me to use it. I had a knife that I was trying to cut my fat back with, but I saw quickly that wasn't working. So instead, I got my kitchen shears and I'm just holding the fat back with one hand and I'm using the other hand to cut it in thick slices. You can use whatever method you like. The thicker your pieces of fat back, though, the longer it will take it to cook through. So just keep that in mind. And I also have my other vegetables already pre-cut and ready to go. So now we can start the actual cooking process. Basic seasonings I'm going to use include onion powder, garlic powder, and black pepper. I also have this liquid broth concentrate from Food Lion. It's a great option to get vegetable broth. It contains 4 packets, and you mix 1 packet with 1 cup of hot water to reconstitute it. And the ingredients are pretty clean when it comes to broth. The sodium is not super high per serving, and the ingredients do not contain MSG or soy. So that's what I like about this. I am pouring a few tablespoons of olive oil into my pan. You could use avocado oil if you prefer. And I am adding oil even though this fat back will render some fat out. I want the fat back flavor to flavor the olive oil that I'm using because with 3 heads of cabbage, I'm going to need this amount of oil to sufficiently lubricate it, so to speak. Down south where I live, some folk will fry up fat back as their meat option with Sunday breakfast along with some grits, eggs, and sliced tomatoes. So, a lot of options for using this fat back as a meat option. You want to rotate the fat back so that it gets brown and golden on each side, and then you can remove it from the pan. And now, with my flavored oil, I'm adding my sliced onions. Onions will release some of their flavor as well. So, all of these different components are adding to the final flavor we will have and enjoy in our recipe. So you may need to turn down the heat a little bit. I'm not trying to brown my onions at this point. I just want them to cook through, soften, and become translucent. Now that my onions have cooked through and become softened, I'm going to add some handfuls of my cabbage. I love the beautiful dark greenness that you see here. Sometimes when you're buying cabbage in the store, you may not be able to find heads of cabbage with a lot of dark green on the outside. So in that case, just buy what you can get and your dish will still be delicious. You just won't have the color. Even though this is a large fry pan, I am adding my cabbage in batches by the handful so that I can make sure it gets fully cooked and incorporated at each level. Now I just added a handful of my carrots and half of my garlic. So I'm cooking this cabbage in batches, and when it's fully cooked, I'll take it out, set it to the side, and make a second batch. I do have a really big wok that I could have used, but today I'm just using the fry pan and I'm making it work with what I have. So you'll notice I'm adding another handful of cabbage. I do not like mushy cabbage, so I like that some of this cabbage will have cooked longer than the most recently added handful because that way I'll get a little bit of texture that I want in my final dish. But as you cook this and taste it, you certainly can cook it to your level of doneness. Now I'm adding some onion powder, and I'm starting off with about a tablespoon of onion powder and a tablespoon of garlic powder, and you want to add seasoning to taste. I recommend not adding any salt or any seasoning blend that contains salt while you're cooking it because of the fat back that we added. I'm adding about a quarter teaspoon of black pepper. Again, you want to add the amount that you like, but I would say start off with a very little bit, and then at the end, you can taste it to see if you want to add more pepper or if you do want to add a little bit of salt to yours. Now that it has cooked mostly through and softened, I am going to create my broth, and you can see the second half of raw vegetables waiting to be cooked. So I have 1 cup of hot water, and I'm just adding my vegetable broth concentrate to that packet and giving it a little stir as the direction said to do. This will help our cabbage to cook through and soften a little bit. It's not required to add liquid when you're frying cabbage, but you'll just notice a difference in texture if you do not. You also could add a dash of liquid smoke, Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, or teriyaki sauce to get that added flavor to your cabbage. But I didn't add any liquid today other than my vegetable broth, and it was very delicious. You can add other seasonings. Accent might be delicious if you use that MSG product You could also use complete seasoning, that would be good in this. Adding Chinese five spice seasoning could be good, or even Jamaican curry powder could be a delicious alternative. So making the one basic vegetable dish can have different flavor profiles based upon the liquids and the dry seasonings that you add, of course. I added a couple of pieces of the cooked fat back to the previous batch and it got a little bit soft from the moisture, of course. So now that my pan is empty, I added oil, cooked fat back, and cabbage to saute it, and carrots. And now I'm adding my broth. So I'm just going to cook up the second batch like I did the first batch. You can cut your fat back up into small cubes so that at the end you can add them after you finish cooking it so they'll stay crispy, or you can mix the fat back in with the cabbage as it's cooking the last few minutes and it will get a little bit soft. Either way, it will be delicious. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel.